There's nothing like a fresh start of a new act. Immortal 1, 2, and 3 are back, and rank distribution is gonna be a little bit different this patch. We're also coming in hot with a brand new map, Fracture, which will no doubt be a big change of pace. With that being said, we want to arm you guys with the knowledge you need as to where the agents stand in the meta before you hop into your rank games, so that way you can start off Act 2 with a bang. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host Sergeant Frost with the patch 3.05 agent tier list. Let's not waste any more time and hop right into the S tier. Same agent, different act, same placement. Jett still remains at the top of the S tier as we move into episode 3 Act 2. So far, in terms of agent balancing, the duelists have not been the devs' focus of balancing attention, so the hierarchy of the duelist class has not changed much recently. Since very few changes have happened to the said duelist class, Jett will stay at the top of the S tier to start off this patch. Jett simply is the best entry fragger in the game, and I think it's common knowledge that teams in high elo need a Jett on their team in order to break open bomb sites efficiently. This will likely still be the case on Fracture as well. Her dash will allow her to traverse through tight corridors in a flash, which means she can get on top of you faster than you can blink. Starting off Act 2, it should be no surprise that Skye is second place in S tier. Skye's rework to her flashes has given her much more longevity over the course of a round. You can use her birds to scout for info, you can use them to pop flash, you can even use them to fake out an enemy and shoot them while they're turned around. A good Skye knows when to abuse her flash capabilities at the perfect moment in a game, and that leaves you with little room or time to counterplay. On top of her flash's versatility, her buff Tiger is a unique tool that works well for both area scouting and for pinning down enemies while incapacitating them as your team runs in. The Tiger's price was increased last act, but its general value far outweighs the price to performance ratio. Skye is starting to become a mainstay in the meta because of how useful she is, so we will have to see if the devs decide to bring her power down in future patches. But until that happens though, she will remain an amazing pick for almost all situations. She seems to be particularly good on Fracture because she'll be able to use her birds and tigers to gather information on multiple entrances in quick succession, which can prove to be monumental for decision making mid-round. Viper as an agent has a justified position in S tier once again for Act 2. Why is that, you might ask? Well, with the introduction of Fracture, Viper has once again found herself on another map where her walls are more effective than individual smokes. Viper's wall covers a huge area when attacking when your team is trying to cut off a line of sight as they rush into a bomb site. Not to mention on defense, her smoke is large enough that you can place it in a choke point and completely cut off vision from the other side. Outside of Fracture, Viper is still the queen of post plant, and she acts as one of the best sentinels on defense for most maps as well. She seems to be particularly strong on maps where hard commits happen often, due to her Molly's post-plant abilities and her smokes regenerating consistently. I think the devs are fine with where Viper is in the meta, so I don't foresee her getting changed anytime soon. With that being said, she is a great pick in the meta right now. Closing out the S tier, we have Sova once again. Sova got a nice buff this patch in that his ultimate now damages and destroys certain types of utility placed on the map. While Sova doesn't use his Hunter's Fury to clear utility, it's a nice quality of life buff when you know you're hunting a Killjoy or a Cypher per se. If anything, this change just makes it so that if you're trying to tag a player who's playing Killjoy or Cypher on site, you'll most likely break part of their setup with collateral damage as well. Sova's utility overall is a staple in the meta, and it's something that every team needs. Yet, Sova's also a hard-to-learn agent with a lot of nuances to his lineups and utility usage. That's why, if you're serious about improving fast and climbing up the rank ladder, then we can help. Come visit us at ProGuides.com and meet some of our Radiant and Immortal level coaches who will be more than happy to help you master an agent or teach you the fundamentals to climb fast. We also have courses from pro players and the master of Sova lineups himself, Average Jonas. So if you're looking to get ahead in Act 2, definitely come check us out. At the top of the A tier this patch, we have Sage. Sage has made her way to the top of A tier for two reasons. First, Killjoy's been hit with a slight nerf, which has caused her to fall a bit in the tier list. Secondly, Sage's walls have meta-defining properties and is easily necessary for a lot of strategies in games. Sage will also likely be pretty strong on Fracture as well. Sage can use her wall to block off a route on defense and focus her attention to the other side of the map. And when attacking, she can strategically use her wall to cut off a bomb site to make it easier for her team to get in and plant. Sage overall has high value due to her versatility as an agent, and her abilities have high value in game. If you need a sentinel that's reliable for Act 2, Sage should be your choice. Omen is slowly climbing his way back up in the meta in the controller category. Recently, after Omen's smokes got fixed in the last patch, and his smoke speed and placement returned to normal, Omen has been seeing a lot more play in the meta. Omen offers unique abilities that other controllers don't offer, like a wide blind, and he has mobility in his shadow step and ultimate. Omen is a jack of all trades controller, and he has the potential for 5 smokes in a round, which is a utility advantage over Viper and Brimstone. Also, in terms of Fracture, Omen's mobility will help him traverse the map quicker, and his ultimate will give him a lot of lurk presence over the map. Omen and Viper might be the go-to smokers for Fracture as the meta for that map develops. If you need to fill in your games and you're looking for an easy but powerful smoker, Omen is definitely the way to go. Big oof. Unfortunately, Killjoy got knocked down a peg or two on our tier list, considering some of the nerfs that she got in this patch. But it's not all bad for the German engineer. Killjoy's turret got its slowing capabilities reduced by 80%, which means her turret will not be as obnoxious on pistol rounds when this thing felt near unkillable at range. While her turret losing its slowing power isn't a deal breaker, it definitely makes it a whole lot less annoying. On top of her turret getting nerfed, Killjoy got indirectly nerfed with Breach's buff. Breach's Aftershock now can damage and potentially destroy all of Killjoy's abilities, and this means she now has a soft counter in game. With all these nerfs combined, Killjoy can no longer be at the top of A tier, but she isn't bad enough to be justified being any lower. Since Breach isn't very popular as an agent currently, she might be able to get away with the current way she plays. But if Breach starts becoming more meta, Killjoys will need to innovate a lot with their lockdowns. Fracture also gives her another map that allows her abilities to work in close proximity to each other and still do some real damage, which should give her another reason to be picked on that map. Second to last in A tier this patch is Reyna. Since it is the start of a new act, you will most likely see a lot more Reynas appearing since players want to get those win streaks going early on in the act. Reyna is a good pick in this meta because if you focus on taking good fights and profiting off individual skill or positioning, you'll be climbing up the rank ladder with wins in no time. Reyna is a simple agent that is kind of one-dimensional in the way that she plays, but if you are an experienced player on her, you can turn her into a demon that feels unkillable. Reyna is one of those agents that really exemplifies good aim, because her kit relies on being activated through kills, so it's a double-edged sword at times. However, if you're looking to carry some games, she along with Jett have some of the highest potential to take over. Closing out the A tier this week is a new face from the Duelist class, and that is Raze. Raze got a slight buff this patch that is big enough to push her out of the B tier and into the A tier. Raze's Boombot got its price reduced from 400 credits to 300, and this is great not only for general economy purposes, but also because she can now buy a Ghost and Boombot again on pistol rounds. While that's not too important, over the course of a game, Raze can now be a lot more liberal with her Boombot since it's slightly cheaper, and it's not going to take as big of an impact on her economy as before. Raze's Boombot's damage did get reduced, but in reality, her Boombot was never meant to get kills. It was meant to scout areas and push enemies off angles when you know they're standing there. The damage nerfs don't hurt Raze a whole lot, and the price buff means that she has a better economy throughout the game, which is a big plus for Raze players. At the top of the B tier this patch is Cypher. Cypher isn't meta right now, as Killjoy, Sage, and even Viper still have precedence over him in pick priority, but he still can't hold his own and do his job efficiently in solo queue. Now that Jett can't break his trips so easily anymore, Cypher does have the potential to stop 5-man rushes and catch enemies in his trips for free kills. However, outside of his trips being strong again, his other abilities just don't compare in terms of overall power levels to the other Sentinels. Another thing to note is that Breach, Sova, and Brimstone changes this patch make his wire susceptible to more utility than before, so there could be some issues that arise when defending against them. So guys, we might start seeing Astra again. A lot of people oversold her nerfs in patch 3.0, including us, as she was relegated to C tier in most people's minds for episode 3. As it turns out, Astra is still a niche meta pick for maps like Split and Bind. Astra is still strong in the right hands, and some pro players are even returning to her because her abilities are still great, and more organized uses for her ultimate have been found as well. The only caveat to her kit is that you now need to know how to play around her cooldowns. Once you learn how to manage her abilities where her cooldowns won't get you killed or leave a site open, Astra can easily feel like a big nuisance to deal with. Phoenix, you poor thing. He once was arguably the best duelist in the game in 2020, and now in September 2021, his kit feels kind of outdated and it feels like other duelists can do things that he can't. What I mean by that is Phoenix does not have unique parts to his kit like instant mobility, no verticality, no burst damage, no extensive healing. It seems like every duelist in the game right now has something special that they can do that he can't. This makes Phoenix feel a bit weak to play, and there's lots of situations where you feel like another agent could have done so much better. There is still a bit of hope for him as Fracture is looking like a map that he could thrive on. His ultimate is still great for scouting out the bomb sites and mid-map safely. Also, his flashes are meant for close quarters fighting, and there is a lot more of that on Fracture. So Phoenix might not be at the top of the meta right now, but he definitely still isn't a bad pick by any means. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but KO is just not it right now. I can't exactly put my finger on why the community as a whole is giving him the silent treatment, and why it seems that we're refusing to pick him, but he just definitely isn't cutting it as an initiator. I think his flashes need to have the fuse sound taken off so that his pop flashing can be a little bit stronger, and maybe his knife should outline the targets it locates through walls for more info gathering. I don't know what KO needs right now, but if the devs don't want another Yoru on their hands, they need to figure out what's not clicking and fast. Otherwise, KO's gonna start rusting out. Closing out the B tier is a new initiator, and it's Breach. So, Breach did get a nice quality of life buff this patch, and it will make his attack a lot stronger than before. Breach's Aftershock now damages and potentially destroys placeable utility around the map, and it specifically destroys Killjoy's Alarm Bot, Nano Swarm, and Lockdown. This kind of makes Breach a soft Killjoy counter, and in pro play, this might make him a niche pick for teams that specifically want to shut a Killjoy down when they're attacking. This small buff actually gave Breach a lot more reasons to be picked in the meta, and I think Killjoy haters will start picking him a lot more now because of it. Also, Fracture is a map with a lot of close quarters fighting, and the bomb sites are relatively small, so Breach's Fault Line and Ultimate will have a lot more value on this map potentially. Falling into the C tier this patch, Brimstone is once again being relegated to the minor leagues. Astra and Omen are starting to see a lot more play now that they can peacefully coexist with Viper in the meta, and that is pushing Brimstone to the back burner of the meta. Beforehand, Brim kind of had use on maps like Bind and Split where he could shoot his lineups from safety to stall and post-plant, but his post-plant abilities are not as potent as Viper or Killjoy's per se. Since there are other agents who can do the one thing he was good at better, he's being demoted to C tier on our tier list. Once again, he's still useful as always, but just not really useful. Lastly, we have, should we just skip this section? Alright, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you guys know what I'm about to say. Yoru's rework has run into a few problems, so it was delayed a little bit longer. Once he does get his rework, which should show up sometime this episode, we will reevaluate him as an agent and see where he stands in the meta. But until that day comes, he is sitting nice and comfy at last place on our tier list. And that concludes it for our patch 3.05 tier list. If you enjoyed this list, make sure to drop us a like and subscribe to keep up to date with the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides. Also, make sure to check out our website for some truly amazing on-demand coaching. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, and good luck on the grind this act.